Hey guys, I'm back. I'm also Sarah. It is very nice to meet you. I make these videos where I pretend like I'm talking to my mom, but instead of my mom, it's you, and instead of my ramblings, it's my ramblings plus research. Today we're talking about Bridgerton. Have you seen Bridgerton season 3? Because if not, you might want to click off this video because it's entirely spoilers. If you haven't seen Bridgerton season 3 or 2 or 1, I will give you a brief summary. Bridgerton is a Netflix show produced by Shondaland based off a book series written by Julia Quinn. The show follows a family, the Bridgertons, in their romantic pursuits in mid to late 18th century Britain under the rule of Queen Charlotte, who is very relevant, and King George, who is not so relevant. The next equally, if not more important character in all of this is the writer, the narrator, the pot stirrer, the professional gossip herself, Lady Whistledown. Lady Whistledown is an anonymous nom de plume for someone within the Ton, which is their community. She releases her very, very popular gossip column to the Ton every week, and she makes sure everyone's secrets are out. This includes the Bridgerton family, but anyone in the Ton is open game. She, of course, comments on romantic pursuits, because what is a woman made for if not marriage and kids and obsessing about marriage and kids? But she also comments on economic problems, family issues, and she goes after some people very personally. She is a professional gossip, but she is also a mystery. The first season has a B-plot of trying to figure out who this woman is. Okay, on to the seasons themselves. Season 1 follows the oldest Bridgerton daughter, Daphne, marrying a duke, Simon. Season 2 follows the oldest Bridgerton son and the heir to the Bridgerton name, Anthony, in his pursuit of a woman named Kate. And Season 3 follows the third oldest son, Colin, and his pursuit of his childhood best friend and Lady Whistledown herself, Penelope Featherington. At least they told us that's what the season was going to be about. That's what we were all expecting the season to be about, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. It actually ended up being a mix of what is allegedly the main plot, which is the romance between them, but also every single B-plot you could possibly think of, including but not limited to the romantic pursuits of Benedict, the second Bridgerton son, the relationship between the second Bridgerton daughter, Eloise, and Cressida Cowper, another woman on the marriage mark, the marriage of the third oldest Bridgerton daughter, Francesca, and what is essentially a story about the sex lives of Penelope's two sisters, which is coordinated by their mom in order to create a male heir to keep the Featherington money and name. The Featheringtons have been having issues with money since season 1, so I'm not too surprised that that's included, but it is weird. And what I'd consider the biggest B-plot, which is the uncovering of the identity of Lady Whistledown. Now, we've known that Lady Whistledown was Penelope since season 1, but nobody else knows that. Eloise, the second oldest daughter of the Bridgerton family, does find out in season 2, but other than that, it's just Penelope and her who know anything. Queen Charlotte, the reigning monarch and another professional pot stirrer, has beef with Lady Whistledown. She thinks Lady Whistledown is stealing her job because she's supposed to be the professional meddler, so there's some resentment there. Now, she's always been trying to find out who Lady Whistledown was because she has beef with her, but this season is when she really puts her foot down and even offers a reward for information about Lady Whistledown. And honestly, there are too many plot lines to get through in one video, so I'm gonna just talk about my biggest qualms with this season. Starting with the main plot, let's get into the nitty-gritty. But before we do that, I'm gonna be doing my makeup like I always do. I am doing this beautiful look from Penelope Featherington herself, icon legend, because she's so pretty and I love her. I'm wearing this cute little pink headband instead of the usual black one because I feel like it's more theme appropriate. And I'm also wearing a yellow dress in honor of Penelope Featherington. Free her. Penelope Featherington has been a close friend to the Bridgertons for basically all of her life. She and Eloise were best friends for practically forever, but her and Colin had a special connection that caused her to have a crush on him because of course she did. He pretty much friend-zoned her because of course he did, but Penelope still got to talk to him and see him at the balls and stuff, but he was very clearly not interested in her. Penelope overhears Colin saying that he would never ever court her at a ball, and that's how we go into season 3, which is allegedly their love story. What everyone was excited to see from this season was Colin's groveling, telling the woman who you are apparently going to marry this season that she is completely undateable is crazy. You would think he would at least explain or be nice about it or say something. That was what was expected, at least. It's like a she's the man kind of thing. Someone is unattractive, allegedly, and then gets help from someone who is conventionally attractive to find a partner, but then the conventionally attractive person who did all the work for them actually finds out that they've been in love with them the whole time. Where Bridgerton season 3 makes this worse is that Penelope does her makeover all by herself and then Colin starts helping her. When she looks how she used to look, she used to wear these like orange and yellow gowns that weren't very flattering to her shape, and she used to have her hair up in very, very ugly hairstyles. So she wasn't exactly like the belle of the ball. But her family came into a bunch of money at the end of season 2, so she got to get a whole new wardrobe and do her hair nice. That's when Colin starts seeing seeing her as anything. Colin has known her for her whole life. They've been best friends for their whole life. Colin has never even considered her as a romantic option. Penelope decides that she doesn't want to live with her mom for the rest of her life, so she decides she's going to get a husband. Now, Penelope's already been on the marriage mart for 3 years, which means she's old news. So she goes to her bestie Colin and asks for help getting a husband. Penelope is awkward at best, so Colin is trying to help her get a little smoother because people are suddenly paying attention to her because she's more attractive. Actually, it does work pretty well because this man named Lord Debling decides that she is very attractive, he likes how passionate she is, and he's kind of weird and she's kind of weird, so they go together quite well. But this all goes awry when it is found out that Colin is helping Penelope, which is a big no-no embarrassing thing. It's found out on the night of a ball, so Colin comes over to her house after she's been embarrassed by literally everyone and consoles her. She thinks this is the end of the world because it is kind of embarrassing, so she asks him to kiss her because she doesn't want to die without having been kissed. Honestly, that made me just want to tell her to stand up because what are we doing? But he does it and he decides, oh, I'm in love with her. Don't piss me off. Penelope then decides she's all in for Lord Debling and she starts pursuing him seriously. And Colin is sitting over here like, wait, do I like Penelope? Still trying to catch up. Lord Debling then makes it very clear to her that he's going to propose. So she's super excited. And this one ball, she knows it's going to be the day. So she tells Colin, her best friend who helped her get there, right? Colin is not very happy because suddenly he's realized that she's supposed to be his. And he barges in at the ball, interrupts them dancing, and tells her that she shouldn't marry Lord Debling. Lord Debling sees the way Penelope looks at Colin and decides that he no longer wants to marry her because he doesn't want her to cheat on him while he's away because he's going away for like 6 years. Penelope is obviously very heartbroken because her one chance at getting away from her mother has now been taken away. So she and Colin have a fight, but he joins her in her carriage on the way home and they kiss and he tells her he's in love with her and then asks her to marry him. And she says yes, because of course she does. And then he finds out that she's Lady Whistledown and then he's mad at her and then he's okay with it and then he says she has to tell everyone and then he's okay with it. The whole exposing Lady Whistledown thing takes up a lot of time in the second half of the season and it's fine. It has to do with the main couple, I guess, but it's basically just Colin going, oh, I'm so upset about that. You shouldn't have kept that from me. And then going, well, that's okay. I still love you, but you need to tell everyone. And then like that cycle over and over again. My main concern with all of this is how her and Colin get together because I think it is just so icky. Bridgerton is a story that is targeted mainly at straight women. The books by Julia Quinn are targeted entirely at middle-aged straight women who don't like their husbands because it's like a bodice ripper. It's a classic bodice ripper. The show Bridgerton is going for a younger audience because it's on Netflix and it's hot people, I guess. So while this story was definitely not great when it was in the book, it's even worse in the show. They do omit things like part of the makeover in the book was her losing weight. In the show, that's not a part of it at all. It's just her clothes and her hair. What really got to me about this season is that Colin really only ever considers her a romantic option when she, one, gets more conventionally attractive, stays the exact same personality-wise, but gets more conventionally attractive, and two, lets him hit, basically. In every single case we've seen in the Bridgerton storylines before this, the guys are pining. They are both in love with the women before anything happens at all. It's all like about the tension. And I think that preferring tension is fine and it's like a story choice, but it's really strange how different it is between the first 2 seasons in this. The whole like, oh my god, I was completely clueless, I just realized thing, I guess is fine. But when it only applies to the story with the actress who's like big, it's kind of strange. It's not uncommon in real life for girls who are bigger to learn to use makeup really well and learn to dress really well to make up for the fact that they are bigger in order to seem more attractive. That's so sad. Like that makes me very upset. And I hate that a show like this is basically doing the exact same thing. Like you have to make yourself as attractive as possible for someone to want you and to see you as a romantic option. Now, this all might be just a coincidence, but I don't think it is. Even in the book, it's explicitly stated that she is bigger and conventionally less attractive than everyone else. So the whole idea of you need to make yourself over in order to be found attractive is just reaffirmed again in the show. I don't think I have to say this, but you shouldn't have to change every aspect of yourself physically for someone to find you attractive. Again, everything about her personality stayed the same. Her hobbies, her passions all stayed the same. He only found her attractive after she got physically attractive. But what doubly pisses me off about all of this is that he claimed that he's always been in love with her and he just didn't realize. Don't lie. Like, don't lie. You haven't been in love with her, you were just her best friend and you liked her as a person. You probably loved her, yeah, but not like that. If you have been best friends with someone for 20 years and you never ever even had the thought, and then suddenly they have a makeover and you're like, oh my god, I've been in love with you the whole time. Like, don't lie. And part of the reason why I have so many issues with all the B plots is we don't see him grovel at all. Fine, he wasn't attracted to her before. You need to be physically attracted to someone to want to be with them in that way. Cool, fine, whatever. He does not grovel at all for his statement that she wasn't even a thought romantically. He just pines in his own room and doesn't say anything to her until he's literally proposing. I don't think it's healthy to let women believe that even in their fantasies, they have to make themselves over in order to be desirable to the person they want. I think it's definitely a common trope, and I don't think Bridgerton's the first thing to do it, but Bridgerton sort of advertises itself as a modernization of the books and a modernization of a bodice ripper. They do sort of race blind casting. It's complicated. They've included people with disabilities this season, but they're doing a lot of things that are very performative without actually addressing the bigger issue. If we just keep telling women over and over and over again that they have to change themselves in order to be desired, or that only the women who are bigger need to change themselves to be desired, because the two women in the earlier seasons were thin, and this one where she has to change her entire self, she's not. That isn't healthy, and it leads to women having lower standards and accepting poor behavior. What Colin did here was not good. He's not a good romantic partner for Penelope, and he doesn't actually appreciate her in any real way. And then when he finds out she's Lady Whistledown, he immediately just goes 180 and hates her. It all feels very surface level. He doesn't even have a discussion about it. He goes, that's unacceptable, and runs away. All signs here are pointing to him only being very superficial about all of this, which is so sad. I'm gonna tell everyone this. I hope you already know this, but you shouldn't have to lower your standards to be desirable. If someone wants to be your partner, they will like you physically for who you are, and they will accept you if your body changes, if your weight fluctuates, and if they don't accept you then they are no longer a good partner. It is absolutely okay to want to be physically attracted to your partner, but it's also not nice if someone just all of the sudden realizes that you're the perfect partner for them because they find you attractive, and then they say that they've liked you. It's the next big issue I have with this season is just to do with queer relationships. I remember telling my mom at the end of the first half of the season that every season they try and tell us more and more that Benedict, the second son, is not queer, over and over. During the first season, we get some kind of queer-coded things happening with him. He's an artist and he's creative, and naturally people were like, that's gay. Season 2, they made it very clear he was not queer. He was hooking up with ladies all over the place. And so when season 3 happened and he's hooking up with this lady at the beginning, I was like, okay, we get it. We get it. He's straight. We get it. They're not going to make him queer. They're trying to tell us we're not making him queer. And they made the straightification of Benedict very clear, because the narrative that we've been hearing about this show is that there is in the contract that all of the relationships from the books have to say the same in the show. And Miss Julia Quinn did not make any queer relationships, so everyone was like, okay, we get it. He's gonna end up with a girl. You don't have to rub it in. But then the second half of this season came out, and Benedict is bisexual. The lady he was hooking up with, she hooks up with a lot of people. And one of which being another bisexual guy, and he catches them doing stuff and then is invited to be part of it because the guy's interested in him and they had this moment, whatever. So he gets into this relationship with these two people, a man and a woman, and we're like, oh my god, Benedict is queer. However, the season ends with the lady who he was always involved with saying, hey, I saw you with the guy and I thought that I was kind of uncomfortable with it because I really am starting to have feelings with you, which I wasn't expecting. And he goes, oh, I thought you were looking for the same thing as me, which is something casual. I wasn't expecting to have feelings. And now that I've discovered that I like more than just women, I feel free and I want to keep experimenting before I settle down. They got to confirm early on that Benedict is queer without making it during his season, but I think making Benedict bi in the 3rd season actually makes it more likely that he will end up with a woman. The writers have been getting pressure from the community to make him bisexual or gay for forever. He's always been queer coded, so everyone has been asking and asking and asking, hey, please make him bi, please make him gay, whatever. But this whole conversation about him being free and having the opportunity to experiment with a lot of people makes me think that Benedict is still going to end up with a woman. What I anticipate is that next season will not be about Benedict's relationship. I believe that season 4 will surround Francesca, who we will discuss later. This season has given me the impression of what I think the next seasons will look like, which is rather rather than having one season per relationship like the first 2 seasons, we'll see multiple relationships developing within the same time. What I think will happen is that Benedict will be experimenting and being free for the first half of the season, and then the second half of the season he will have his meet cute with his partner.
Hi, editing Sarah here. I realized that I took this point and talked about it for too long and also didn't ever get to the actual conclusion. So here it is. I don't think that Benedict being queer or becoming queer in this season means that he will have a queer relationship in the next season. I think a lot of times the most important part to a lot of media people is the coming out story. I think if he is going to end up with a man, they would have left that story for his season. And I also think the whole story is cheapened because it comes more out of sexuality than romantic interest, which is already like a stereotype of queerness. So I think it would have even been better if the story happened with male partner. Having him become bi the season before means that they can show him being queer when he's being a slut. Other than that, I think it's going to be a woman he ends up with. There's something very slutty bisexual trope about this thing, but also fourth season hasn't happened, so you can take my word on that or you can't, and that's fine. Okay, bye.
In a media landscape that's more open to queer relationships and with a lot of queer people being in the audience for these kinds of young adult shows, it's not uncommon that someone will just make a queer character to make a queer character. And for the most part in season 1, 2, and 3, Benedict has just been this sort of side character, a slutty side character. So making him queer now is pretty harmless if they still want him in a straight presenting relationship at the end. I don't know that any of this is like 100% true and they're definitely gonna not make Benedict's partner queer or whatever, but it seems really likely to me. Benedict seems like another case of the classic slutty bisexual trope. Maybe they'll prove me wrong and maybe it'll be fine and maybe I'm just being silly, but I think it's something to consider. Speaking of queer people in the show, we saw the beginning of a queer relationship happening at the very, very end of season 3. Francesca, the third oldest Bridgerton daughter, marries Lord Kilmartin and decides to go live with him in Scotland. She and him have a really beautiful relationship, and it's very nice to see someone really appreciate quietness and for someone to be able to see that you need things to be quiet and to just sit there and know that that's what you need right now. I think the development of their relationship is really brilliant, and I think he sees her in a way that none of her family ever really did, and I found a lot of value in that. The show did not. The show made their romance very, very nice, very sweet at the beginning of the season, but by the time they get married and they have their first kiss, Francesca's kind of disillusioned with him. Like, she's like, oh, I didn't actually like him like that. At the very end of season 3, Francesca and Lord Kilmartin are leaving for Scotland. Eloise decides to join so she can see the world before she changes it, and so does Lord Kilmartin's cousin, Michaela. Francesca sees Michaela and she's like, oh my god. She is very obviously smitten, at least attracted to her at first, and she ends the story by leaving to go to Scotland with Michaela and Lord Kilmartin. Now, if you haven't read the book and you don't want to be spoiled for the next season, or what I think will be the next season, skip for like a minute. In the book, Francesca marries Lord Kilmartin, pretty much like how she did in the show. She is deeply in love with him. They're both in love. They move to Scotland. She gets pregnant, he dies, and she has a miscarriage. In order to support Francesca in her time of grief, and because he's the one who ends up inheriting this state from Lord Kilmartin, Lord Kilmartin's best friend and cousin, Michael, moves in with Francesca. He and Francesca end up forming a deep bond and fall in love with each other, and it turns out that he was in love with her from the moment he met her. So when Michaela came into the picture, people were like, that's who Francesca's gonna end up with. Now, there was obviously a mixed reaction to this. Some people were excited that a main character was gonna have a queer relationship, yay, go lesbian. Other people were like, you can't change it, it's Michael, blah blah blah. Other people had more particular issues with the change. Some people have said that the books, it's very clear that Francesca's big goal, or one of her big goals, is to become a mother, and that it turns out that she will not be able to become a mother, at least not naturally, with Michaela, because they're two cis women. I am not homophobic. I like gay people. I'm very happy about gay people, so I'm not mad about it. I'm also not a fan of the books, and I famously, if you've been here before, care about adaptation more to make it good for the medium than staying faithful to whatever thing it's being adapted for. Part of the issue with all of this is that Francesca is very explicitly shown to not actually be attracted to her husband. That's fine. Some people are closeted. Some people don't realize until they've, been with a guy that they don't actually like men. But making that decision in the show actually really cheapens something from the book that I think would have been so impactful, especially as a queer narrative. In the book, Francesca is really in love with her husband, Lord Kilmartin, so it's really, really tragic when he dies, and so being with Michael is like another big thing. It's not just that she was kind of lukewarm about her husband or just like liked him but didn't like him and then fell in love with someone else. She fell in love, had a super big tragedy, and then fell in love again afterwards. It's like a big deal. First of all, I think the way that Francesca and Lord Kilmartin fall in love in the show is really, really good. And I think more than anything, it's a really quiet way to give representation. Francesca is very neurodivergent coded. She is super obsessed with piano. She hates how loud her house is. She feels like she's always like stuffed in because it's so loud. There's so many people. And she falls in love with him. Maybe because they have common interests, but because he sees that in her, he's available to just be quiet with her, to spend that kind of time with her. And he sees how important her interests are to her and makes that very clear that he cares too. We don't often see romances that are quiet like that, and I think it's because it's probably less entertaining. But since Francesca and Lord Kilmartin's story was a side story, I think it would have been okay to have it be quiet. That all sort of falls apart when we get to the wedding scene because she kind of makes this face after, like, you may now kiss your bride, whatever. That makes it clear that she was like, oh, maybe I don't really like him. And then for her to immediately be like, Michaela, it feels like we wasted a season watching these two people fall in love. And it feels like it's delegitimizing that kind of love story. Obviously, we're not getting all our romance advice or perspective or anything from Bridgerton, but it is important to see different kinds of relationships happening. I think if they did have her and Lord Kilmartin really be in love, we could still see Michaela at the end of the show, and they could still fall in love next season or the season after, whenever they decide it's Francesca's turn. And I think it would have been much more valuable. Maybe they feel like they can't fit in a story where she falls in love, he dies, she falls in love again, but they're already spreading it out over multiple seasons, so I think they could have done it justice. On the kids thing, it could be that Michaela is widowed and she has a kid already. Like, there's ways to do it, that's fine. Or they could adopt. There's so many options to have a queer couple have kids, so like you could just do it. I understand having just a straight up lesbian relationship, and that's super cool. And I know we already get another bi relationship happening in this show, in this season, but like we're allowed to have two, you know? If one of them is just a slutty bisexual, it can't be that the other one is turned. I think we could have a much healthier bisexual representation with Francesca. And also, if they wanted a lesbian relationship, it was right in front of us, babes. Cressida and Eloise should have ended up together. It's so obvious, it was so clear, and I thought everyone else was thinking the same thing, but it didn't happen. Eloise, second oldest Bridgerton daughter, becomes friends with Cressida Cowper, who was once very vain and mean and not very nice to Eloise, but then they became friends this season. I wasn't expecting much from this. I thought it was going to be a thing where she was just friends with Cressida to get back at Penelope because she wanted to make Penelope feel bad, but Eloise and Cressida had a really good relationship in the first half of the season. Cressida was obviously having some family problems, and Eloise was supporting her throughout them. Cressida kept being told not to hang out with Eloise, but she kept seeking her out and being friends with her, and it was very sweet and very, very obvious that they're like, you know, like there's something happening. When the second half of the season is released, Cressida and Eloise are not friends anymore. Cressida is trying to use Lady Whistledown as a means to get out of an arranged marriage with an old crusty man, and then she's like shunned by Eloise and everyone because she's pretending to be like it's so boring. It's so boring. We could have had so much better, and we decided to just stick with the most boring option. Here's what I think should have happened with Cressida and Eloise. First half of the season can stay exactly the same for them. Second half of the season, Cressida marries Lord Debling and he leaves for 6 years, and her and Eloise are like best friends and they live together because Cressida is like lonely without her husband and they're in love. I feel like Eloise has always been sort of queer coded, like Benedict too, like, and they're best friends too. As siblings, they're very close, so it would make sense, but instead, they suddenly make Cressida evil again, Lord Debling disappears out of the picture, and doesn't marry anybody, and I guess leaves for 6 years and without a wife. And Eloise is still alone and going to Scotland, and Cressida's who knows where. They just had such a good opportunity for a cute little relationship. They just didn't take it, and that makes me so sad. Like, guys, you're already doing it. You're already doing it. Like, you're already going to give a queer relationship. Make it a good one. And they spent so much time reestablishing Cressida as this good person, and then to just throw her in the bin because they were done with her. Eloise and Penelope were all of the sudden friends again. They wasted it. They wasted it so much. Honestly, I would have rather seen Eloise and Cressida end up together than Benedict be queer at all, because I think His queer storyline was kind of boring and unnecessary, but that storyline would have been out of this world. It would have been great. Okay, I think I look suitably fine. So in sub, if you're gonna do a queer storyline, do it well, do it meaningfully. Don't just make it queer for the sake of being queer to appease people and then make it kind of cheapened. Stop telling women that they need to change themselves in order to be valuable or romantically interesting to anybody. Make men grovel. Make men grovel. Take more time. Stop with that bar guy who learned how to be rich. Don't put that on the screen. Make Colin grovel, please. Okay, if you're still here, thank you for watching. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, like it. If you want to subscribe, you should subscribe. I had so much fun wearing a dress and looking like this with my cute little claw clip. So watch season 3 if you haven't seen it, if you want to. I feel like I gave you everything valuable here today. It's just really awkward. It's just really awkward. Colin and Penelope are really awkward, man. Okay, like, subscribe, goodbye.